But now I'm thinking about, and we can talk about this on another episode, but flow.
Yeah.
And Wu Wei with the whole thing with Taoism, where it's just like being able to do a mundane task and get into some kind of zone. It's not about your craft, but it's being able to have some kind of experience.
But is that meaning, or is it more tricking your brain into enjoying something? I've been big on this for a while. My opinion on flow is like it's good to a certain extent, but in all technicality, you can achieve flow state if you use the hacking methods that's talked about a lot in it. You're not actually doing a meaningful task. You're just tricking your brain into believing what you're doing is like high level meaning, right?
Right.
Because like, for example, the whole flow thing is one of the main triggers is, I was going to say diversity, but it's novelty. Novelty can be found easier than people would believe. Like, for example, I wanted to find novelty doing some mundane task. So for accountants, they could find novelty in their work, in technicality, if in some way, someone walks into a room and slaps them every time they stop doing what they're supposed to be doing. You say, I'm going to slap you until you finish this for the day. Like, I mean, you're going to get into a flow about that. Am I wrong?
Are you calling the slap the novelty?
Well, on a day-to-day basis, as an accountant, I'm hoping that the general business practice is that your boss wouldn't come in and slap the heck out of your face and say, you finish this in the next 3 hours or you're done. So that's extreme novelty. You're going to be in flow state like that.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying now.
Like, there is an infinite amount of possibilities in the universe, in my opinion.
Sure.
So if you manage to somehow create a computer algorithm that could create all these weird scenarios where you'll get triggered into being in flow state for an accountant job, or a job, once again, to hedge, accountant equals not fulfilling job really. But if you manage to find all these scenarios, and people only live, math's awful, so I'm going to get a calculator or pretend that I can do math. They live 10 years, they live 3,650 days, so times 8. Say people live like 25,000 days, right? Okay. And they work in a job, the same type of job, for 50 of those years. So more in the tens of thousands, or teens of thousands of days.
I like what you converting these into days.
As
if years won't suffice.
Yeah, right? As a what?
As if years will not suffice.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, though, because the reason I'm doing this is because you need to quantify the amount of random scenarios where, like, for example, 15,000 days is how many days you work in your life.
Oh, gotcha.
You need to find 15,000 different ways to freak the accountant out or entice the accountant to do that said job.
Okay.
So my argument here would be flow state is less about meaning and more about finding 15,000 ways that you could then trigger their flow state via novelty.
Okay.
But the novelty is technically not the accounting work. It is the novelty of some sort of random factor that you just shoved on them. Like, for example, slapping the heck out of their face.
Right. Yeah. And I think you said that well, because I think when I brought up the whole flow state thing, I think I was confusing the ends for the means. I think like I had said earlier, it was about finding meaning and then choosing the job. But it seems like a lot with flow state, it's like we have chosen the job, or, the job has been put onto us. And now it's like, how can we just trudge through this in the most efficient and self-disassociating way as possible?
Exactly.
Just a really morbid way of putting
it. It is extremely morbid. I mean, you find, and here's a perfect example of it. Going back to the more meaning argument, I watch a lot of these guys that I would maybe like to be one day in the productivity space and YouTube and whatever. Sure. They've talked about flow state for a reason, and they've talked about how they struggle with doing these things, right? And I even have struggled making videos before, yada, yada. I need to find ways to trigger the flow state to make things happen. Right? Even if that's the meaningful thing for you to do, human beings are inherently lazy, in my opinion. Okay, I hedged. No, human beings are inherently lazy. It's more about like the fight or flight response in the sense of what are the base needs of a human? Eat, sleep, procreate.
Right.
Where's work makes sense in that? Why do we work? There's a book called Why Do We Work? And it's about we all really do search to find meaning. However, there's like this constant battle between the fact that yes, we as humans, we do like to work. Even if we were all born with $1 billion, most people would end up trying to find something to do. That's true. Right. However, there are these little psychological factors of just like our innate human being pre-modern civilization, right?
Right.
So I think all of us struggle, and you know this in anything you've loved to do. I mean, we've all struggled with getting through. We both love running, right? We've all struggled with getting through like some random run that happens. It could be even like multiple times a week. We can love it. We can find great utility and we can find great meaning in it. But the flow state's just like, all right, man, on those days, get through it. And that's why the routines for me are so big. See that switch I did? That was a pretty good segue. Like the routines that I do are because meaning to me in the sense of I'm setting myself up to create more meaning in what I'm doing, because my definition of it is doing this thing where I create videos, doing this thing where I make it. Because a lot of those situations of novelty, yes, they occur and they get me into the flow state. But there's almost like a sense of no matter what you're doing, it's an argument Ali Abdaal has made before. Like
no job is
no
fun.
Job is fun.
Yeah,
even if you love it. Even if you love it.
That.
Yeah. So like, sure, could you find more meaning in switching around the random day-to-day stuff? Yeah, you can do that. But what it comes down to for me, and in my more, what's the ocean thing? What is it? I was good in sea.
Openness to experience? Conscientiousness?
And conscientiousness. Since I am that way,
yeah,
I know that if I just shove everything into this like sort of routine, yeah, I'm going to find days where it's really hard, but I'm putting that thing there all the time, which is what is more meaningful to me. But we innately as humans do struggle to still do the things we love.
Oh, of course.
So that struggle is that change, and me having to consistently use the flow state to trigger me doing the work and then also failing at it often.
Sure.
Me quitting for YouTube for 30 days. I have great structure. Mm-hmm. That's still a story I can tell, because no job is fun ever, all the time.
No hedging. Yeah, man, I think you articulated that well. I think that you would definitely find yourself in the, yeah, that was a lot for you. Take a deep breath.
Okay. All right, we're good.
You'd find yourself in the postmodern camp if you were a well-versed philosopher. It's kind of started with Nietzsche, but moved on to other philosophers like John Paul Sartre, who essentially say, you know, the whole life is meaningless thing. There's no meaning, no inherent meaning in life. The only thing
if you want to see this episode or any other episode of the Rise Productive Podcast, make sure to go and check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you can find podcasts today.